Oh boy, I've been extraordinarily busy, you guys, with a living nightmare here. But let me touch on this one because I have to ream everybody in this. And my point is not that Republicans are great because we already know a whole bunch of them are pal. You know what? Um, these Dems have been acting like they're totally different and they're not part of the problem, and they are. And Newsom here is acting an entitled, affluent asshole. I'm just saying, okay, so let me show you. If you completely understood this issue, you would see how evil this is. And it really is. It really is. And it's taken some decades to really grasp the deeper issue that's going on here, which is basically the rich. And, we have a very few politicians that are talking against them and how that's a problem in our politics. And it is very much so. And if you create a system that creates this to begin with, I would assume that would be your problem, right? Um, Now they could take it as their problem, but they still want to blame everybody else for it and definitely not themselves. Okay. What are we doing here, Newsom? Okay. I just find the hypocrisy in this so wonderful, mostly with the fire, that happened some years ago and what we found out. And I thought it would be really interesting for it to be a topic, mostly from, somebody like LA Times or anybody else, somebody writing up on it. There probably is some one-offs that are doing it, like maybe somebody like the LAist or somebody. There are some off media sources that do tend to talk about the truth of things, but it's not like mainstream media that, the general population gets. And also, I was talking about how in different counties and states, the media is very different talking about the same topic that we get over here. And it's strange. And to be aware of that strangeness, even though you've watched it all the time, and I'll watch, like, the media here that's in a story, right? It'll be in a story. But the whole context of it is different when it's played out, like on TV, saying Michigan. We were talking about this actually. I was like, that is bizarre. But once you're aware of it, you're never going to be unaware of it. Okay. So we're not going to, what does he say? He's going to crack down on homelessness. This is cute. Not crack down on your effed up mentality and the system that you created to cause that. Okay. It's like a disease to get rid of. Like somehow they caused it. No, that's actually not what happened here. And I'm actually breaking down each of these things that they're doing in our state, which is against the law. There is laws written for these things. However, nobody gets busted for them and nobody reports it. I'm going to say for a couple of reasons why they probably don't report it. There isn't really any information on who you report it to. If you're getting discriminated by a rental and somebody makes up that they already rented it out. Okay, so we had this actually with LAPD, which was really cute when I moved in with them. And I was just telling somebody else this story too. It's a long story, but anyway, and I've gone through that story here too, probably about a bazillion times. So you can't just make that up, and you better show proof that you rent it out to somebody before the other person. And yeah, so it needs to be investigated. So anytime somebody says that and you suspect it, there needs to be a very easy way to report these people, and they should be fined and or jailed. Some of these people should be jailed for a number of reasons, but limited to being fined. Okay, that's been going on. So what happens there in the context of this? A lot of people were ending up in illegal housing, and I went through this weird, dark underworld of illegal housing back in, oh, wow. I was trying to think of the year of this one because I was talking about it where I went into a home. The guy said that he owned all these houses, right? And he's like, oh, yeah, I got some places right. We, kind of babysit the house until the house goes for sale. And I was like, that's interesting. What is that? And lo and behold, they were housing a bunch of people of color and abusing the crap out of them and taking all their money, and they were living in slum. It was the scariest thing, though, that it's occurring. And I went in there and I was like, oh my God, this is going on. Like, it's so weird. Like, it's like, I'm not scared of the people. It's that I'm scared. Well, I'm more scared of the person that's driving me there, okay? Because they wouldn't let me take my car there. And it's some dude in a Mercedes. And it's a black dude, and he's totally well off. And I'm looking at the people that he's taking advantage of, and they were obviously poor, and they could not afford to do the rent here in California. We're talking about, I believe this is in the late 90s, but I would say at the latest, the early 2000s. And I said that they asked to show me some other houses that they had. If I didn't like that one, I go, that one's scary as hell. Just because you didn't get a private room. They basically had a house that went into foreclosure, I believe, or something about the house was going to go for sale with the bank or something weird. And they were trying to present it as babysitting the house so nobody ruins the house, and then they're going to sell it and that somebody's there. Okay, this is what they were saying. However, when I went into the house, there was like 20 some odd, 30 some odd people there. And they were just sleeping on the floor. There was no electrical. There was nothing. Like, people were just lighting candles and hanging out. And it was a sad thing to see. It was like, I knew they weren't going to do anything to me. Like, they're in this community of like trying to protect themselves, though, you know, some of those people may have been on drugs, so maybe they do steal from each other. I don't know. I didn't hang out to ask everybody about that. But I'm just looking at it and I was like, this is messed up. It's just messed up. I go, how much are you charging? He said, I believe it was like $500 or $600. And they had to live like that. And that's a lot of money for back then. You could actually get your own unit for that much. And I believe a lot of the reasons for those type of things right there is because maybe their credit got messed up. Maybe some people were wanted, who knows? But no, they look generally, you know, the way, like visually, when I'm looking at them, they just reminded me of like your average day, every day. Like, somebody maybe have gone to college and this is where they're staying during the day. They didn't come off as like these like total, you know, what you're seeing in these tents. However, it's still the same thing. Okay. So then, yeah, so they were saying they owned some other properties. So that was one thing that I ran across in this underground world of illegal housing. And where these people are profiting. I mean, imagine the money that guy was making doing that illegal conduct right there and taking advantage of people not in a position of power and being able to stay somewhere that is healthy, safe, and, you know, these type of things. It was probably considered a necessity at that time period because there were people that didn't want to be out. If you're paying $500 or $600, you have income somehow, but you don't want to be in a dangerous position where you're just sleeping on a street. So people were getting into these situations. Another one was the trailer thing, right? I was saying that they were renting those out, which was awful that they were doing that. So there's a lot to this story, and it hasn't really been covered properly. Like, they go, oh, we do these head counts. I'm like, well, can you tell me how you did a head count inside of these houses with 30 people sleeping on the floor? And we knew this was happening even later, or was it? Yeah, so in 2007, then we found out that people were taking advantage of these people as well by taking their entire welfare money and making them sleep on the floor in their house with tons of people. And there's no way out of that situation because all their money goes to the person that's doing that. Yeah, that's insane. But that was going on. So I found out about that. The guy, I felt bad for the guy. He's like telling me, he's like, yeah, I mean, what am I going to do? You know, at least I got, you know, this to stay in. And then they go, no, they take my check. It was a she that was doing it. I don't know who the she is, but there was some woman that was taking their 200, I believe it was a $200 check, because that's usually what government gives. It was either their $200 check or hopefully not their other checks, which, when you start talking about disability checks, they could be around 700 something. Anyway, so she was taking all that money and making them sleep in slum with multiple people. Not, oh, one person gets a room. We're talking like 30 some odd people, like 20, whatever, whoever will stay there. She'll take the money. You could stay in the house. That's how people are going at it. So I was like, wow, you would not know this stuff until you go through it. And you learn it by talking to the people. And I would have never talked to anybody that would even know to stay in a place like that. You know what I mean? It's like on an everyday level of things. It is, and the county knows about it. So the other thing is, it isn't like, oh, I just discovered this thing and nobody else knows about it. It feels like that when it's going on, but that's actually not what was going on here. So LAPD and all them, I said, got together and decided that they're going to throw fire victims into the street, and then they didn't want to answer questions about it. So there legitimately is people that were thrown out in the street from when you're talking about the Selmar fires. So I was saying karma did happen to some of these people in the Palisades. Trust that. Trust that. Okay, so also those people in the Palisades would discriminate against you if you had Section 8. That is another thing that they've been doing, which is against the law. They've been getting away with this, and so therefore if they discriminate there, then they're going to end up in either A, illegal housing, or B, on the street. So these are actions that have been going on in the county since, God, probably before I was born, okay? But it was my number one thing when I came into LA, when I first seen this issue. It was something I wanted to tackle. So I'm being true to myself. We're still being true to ourselves. This is not exactly the way I wanted to learn about it. But we're really understanding the root issue and understanding who is to blame. And it is not the poor. It's not the people out here. And, for Newsom to come up with this kind of crap is so affluent. It's the asshole affluent snot that came from privilege, that never sees any wrong with themselves or anything of how they're doing things to cause other people to suffer. Okay, so he goes on, we're not going to fund failure. Well, if you follow capitalism, you're funding a lot of bad stuff right there, because we get human trafficking out of capitalism, right? And why would that be, The system is highly flawed, and for somebody to look at a system and go, this is a wonderful system that we sit down, and throw people in the street because they can't pay something. Money is king. There is a problem with that. And it's really interesting. A lot of religious people love this system, which technically they're not supposed to, if you want to follow that kind of crap, because we had to study all that too. Humans are supposed to come first, okay? Regardless of income or any of these things. This type of conduct is so barbaric. Of course that's going to happen. So, mostly when you're talking about capitalism, it has many flaws, okay? It has many flaws. And let's see. He warned cities and counties that they could lose out on hundreds of millions of dollars in state funding if they do not make progress. If they do not make progress in clearing out encampments and tackling homeless. Like, the homeless are the people that are the problem, right? Not tackling you and how you hate poor people, and your system literally makes people homeless every day, right? So evictions make people homeless. Many times they have. Income inequality, when we're talking about those things. It does not equate to somebody not having a job and being lazy, though they chronically put these things together, which is disgusting. I just think it's funny they're doing this in the middle of Black History Month, because the combination of racism and this classism thing are very much together. They're very much together. And no, it doesn't just affect people of color. However, It's very much part of the history of that, right? And I had to learn some additions in this story on that portion of history and housing. And that was eye opening. I would not say it's the root, but it definitely is part of what's going on here. I had witnessed this when I was trying to get a rental when this woman of color was with me and somebody decided that they were going to change their mind and lie and say they rented the place out to somebody else. And I was like, wow, I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have happened if this lady wasn't with me. I guarantee you. And usually they're not discriminatory towards me unless they start saying, oh, I don't have a man, or, some certain other things, but not like that. That was insane. And I told her, and then how does she act to it? She's like, oh, it's probably true, but, that happens. But nobody does anything, right? And it's against the law. And so I was saying, I go, well, if they continue this on, why do you make it a law when you don't do anything about it? We have a lot of laws like this in California where they say, oh, it's against the law to do this. But then, like, such as some federal offenses, when I went into that, they said, yes, of course it's against the law. But you know what? It's so common, we don't do anything about it. Okay, well, why have a law on record? Why do you have a law at all, It's legal. Don't say it's illegal when you don't even pursue it. So this is what we have going on. A lot of this. So then housing becomes a thing for only the rich. And you're seeing a bunch of what's out here talking about, oh, we should only, enrich the rich, and poor people are terrible and only wealthy people deserve to live. Okay, that's part of male supremacy generally. But as you see, it's a lot of white supremacists going on to that level. But we have been seeing it in other countries. We're talking about this actually, where they started changing some policies where it was like, you have to make a certain amount of money to come here. And it's like, oh, we're going to start that. So somebody that's starting at the bottom can be an asset to the state by creating jobs. I mean, they usually start off as small businesses, right? And then they, need employees and then hire other people. But it was equated to only rich and wealthy people are good people or something. Actually, the rich and wealthy are the worst pals of what out here on this planet. And there's a reason for that, but, biblically they have touched upon this, even though we don't follow these religions. But historically, they've always existed, these terrible people. So actually you could go through a lot of religions and they start talking about these really horrific, greedy monsters and why it's hard for them to make it to heaven. There's a whole thing to that. So they have existed throughout history, and it's been a problem throughout history, so it isn't anything new. So Gavin, what did you say? Announcing $920 million in funding to address the crisis. But you know what they cared about was price gouging, but not for the average American. The average American cannot afford $8,000 to $13,000 a month in rent. You may think that the way the perception is being skewed in the media, it's so crazy. And this little cesspool of rodents over here. Generally, the general population, like middle America, they ain't paying nothing like that. And they want to come online and start trashing people for having Section 8. I will tell you that those people couldn't even afford to even rent a shed out here, let alone to be talking crap about anybody else, okay? But their perception is highly skewed. Last summer, Newsom told counties he could withhold state support if they failed to do more homeless encampment sweeps. Oh, they're not human, right? So this would be your typical affluent white guy that's like, we need to clean up this thing. These gross people out here. We need to sweep that crap out of here. This is not a solution. This is spring cleaning that's going to come back later. We want to see results. this is not how you address this topic, because this topic has a lot to do with your system that needs the system changed and your perception about humanity in general, and your conduct in your discriminatory nature that has been going on here throughout this thing. Your what did I call it? Your fast food evictions. That was one. They barely tackled that. Okay, so that was like a top topic for a while because they would just go boom, 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 boom. You couldn't even do anything about it. Illegal housing, that's another one. So that's actually a pretty big one. I've been on that one for a while in the underground world of that crap, and it is crazy. They did find one story that they did run with the person that was running out about 50 trailers on their property and was making all this money on it. Yes, but generally those people, they have those trailers on the street and they're all over the place, and so they don't get caught as easy as it would be having 50 on your property. Okay, so that's another part of that universe right there. We have to address unsheltered homeless encampments and tents like it's object, right? They're not talking about other people as humans. They're talking about them as something disgusting to clean up and get rid of. It's really gross how Newsom thinks of other humans. We have been too permissive. We need them cleaned up. Okay, so now it's nothing about addressing why they became that way to begin with through your system. And we're providing unprecedented support. Now we need to see unprecedented results. What a cocky, you know what. So let's talk about this. So I have proof that they gave maps out to send fire victims into the street to go live. So now you want to clean them up, but you put them there. But you guys all put them there. I don't know if Newsom was in power at that moment. We had Brown, who was such a, ugh. I would have to go look, and I don't want to. Regardless of that, they told people to go live in the street. We have documented proof that they did this. And it says from who and when. And they did this during a fire. So they want to make it where you only feel empathy for the rich, okay? So that's not happening over here. We don't feel no empathy for y'all. Because you guys set this up to do this. So the rich decided that they didn't want any type of sheltering in their areas. And that would include if their house caught on fire, that they would have somewhere to stay. No, because they could pay for the hotels, right? And they're going to get paid for staying in hotels. Okay, so they don't see a need for anything like that because of their stupid, snotty asses. But it was actually them that decided they didn't want that in their town. All over, in every city. So what happens is the government here decided to bend over and take it really hard from all these rich people dangling their wallets, and then threw the people in the street, directed them into the street, and with a map. And they're coming out here like, oh my God, those people just want to go live in the street. They want to be out there. We have nothing to do. We need to clean this up. I'm like, you just put them out there, honey. I was literally there. The media was there. I don't know what crap these people are trying to pull out here. I don't. They were trying to silence this information the whole time. I have everything to back that up. Everything under the sun to back that up. He goes like this. If we don't, we're not going to continue to fund excuses. So we're going to punish poor people from having somewhere to stay if other people are the F-ups in the story. The rich people are the F-ups in the story, the ones that are being in charge of everything. Okay, so if they're the F-up, we're going to totally harm all the poor people, okay? We're not going to continue to fund failure. That's right, you haven't funded anything but your own McMansion. So, I mean, you've been the entire capitalist system is a failure. Let's just put it that way. It's a chronic failure. It's meant to set you up to not be ready for retirement. It's always been that way. There's like literally nothing in the story that has changed since I was growing up. And the same complaints from the adults, back then, are the same complaints as now. It's like, we work so hard and put our money aside. We have none for retirement. Okay, well, that's been the same story forever. California's homeless crisis is the worst in the U.S., with roughly 1/3 of the county's population of unhoused people. Okay, well, what's here the most, right? Celebrities. This is a very big popular area for celebrities. Rich celebrities, rich naughty celebrities, people that want to be famous, which would include rich politicians, rich corrupt businessmen that want to run human trafficking rings. This is what is different in our state compared to other states. It would be probably more similar to, say, New York. New York definitely has a problem over there. But they have a different thing too because it snows, and I think maybe there is more shelters there because it would be just even more evil for them not to do that. I can't speak for New York, but we do know that New York has some similar issues. But not, I don't even think to the extent of California, how corrupted, they literally kidnap people off the street here, okay? There's so much corruptness in this system that they turn it into a prison system, and you wouldn't really know that until you run through it. They're just bullshitting you all day long up in here, and they're taking advantage of people who are down and desperate. And when you're down and desperate, you're going to say yes to any type of garbage that's out here. And that's kind of what's been happening. And it's keeping this illegal housing black market going on, which shouldn't be going on. And that's how a lot of these rich people are becoming rich. They're getting a lot of money from this type of conduct. It's like the underground world of drugs. This is just another avenue that people have been going on about. And a lot of people have been lying about their income. That's another thing. So you're not getting a really true perspective of the picture here. So a lot of these people that are even renting places, they don't make as much as they're saying. So that's another thing, but that's been going on. That's kind of old time stuff. But for some reason, if you're on Section 8, that's somehow worse. Actually, it's not. At least you get a promised income and you know exactly what they make because the government has to fund that into that system there, and you at least get this promised amount. Unlike somebody coming in, making and falsifying information and lying and not paying. So, the reason there's like a combo of reasons why that was occurring. It wasn't just because somebody's scamless or something, a scammer or anything like that. It's that, it's really difficult, I think, for some people to get onto the Section 8 to get those type of programs. And then, desperately needing to go get a place. But then there are these people that just ride the system that will, lie. But it's not just like somebody poor doing it. Rich people have done it quite a bit. Oh, I make millions of dollars. And then technically they make like $100K a year, right? So we have those guys. So it's not just limited to a certain group of people, but that's been going on. Okay. And then we have a 2003 count found more than, okay, so the thing is that we have roughly 1/3 of the country's population of unhoused people, but we also have the top, thing called Hollywood here, a bunch of predators and snotty people that only care about how they look. And that would include what they drive, what their house looks like, all these things, and then pushing, poor people out, doing those kind of things. And then doing fake things like going to charity events, but then discriminating on the side in the background and just being full of shit. So then we have found more than 180K people in the state were experiencing homelessness. It's definitely a bazillion times more than that at any given moment. Some people, I would say that probably the majority of people do not just stay homeless. I'd say that a lot of people, they get homeless and then they find another avenue and then they may go into another place. But at any given time, there's way more than that. And then we're not calculating what I just said about the underground illegal thing going on. Yeah, so that would definitely add numbers, because like I said, the one house was like 20, 30 people. I think it was just an open door. It's like, whoever wants to stay here, give me money, come here for the night. And however many fit in there is what fits in there. So, and that was one of the houses that they said they had a bunch of them. So that's a very dark thing right there. People in the state were experiencing homelessness, including 123K people who were unsheltered or living outside on the street in tents, trailers, carts, and makeshift shelters. Okay, that's been going on before I was even born. Just saying. Because when I first came out here, that was really big, and some people had such a different view of this. Mostly people living in cars. There was kind of this thing where, living in a van was kind of a cool thing, right? Because of the hippy dippy time. So the amount of hate was a lot different back then. They may have still, degraded some poor people and all that. But the type of vitriol, the evilness that's coming out now is night and day from that time period to today. But there's nothing different other than back then, trailers were a lot more expensive because that was kind of the mid-class thing to have, is a trailer. Do you guys remember that? Even those pop tent trailers, because they were more convenient to cook to your car. Yeah, so in our mid-class hometown, mid-upper class hometown with all the old McMansions and everything, it was desirable to have these RVs, and to even have someone live in them on your property was a big deal. Because I remember somebody having their grandparents or their grandma, it was their grandma, yeah. So to retire and go stay in the trailer because it was kind of luxury. So it was not as common to see as many trailers as we do today, because a lot more people don't, they can get the cheaper trailers from that time period to now, and some people are taking major advantage of that. Okay, so if you're living outside on the street, you would definitely want a tent. You're gonna see that. The cart thing though was number one. That was actually so common. It was not even a big deal to go, oh yeah, I stayed in my car overnight. It wasn't even nobody even flinched on these type of stories from back then. It's not the greatest story, but it wasn't uncommon. People would be up at all hours of the night and they'd stay in their car, It was something that was occurring, that entire time in my childhood thing right there. Makeshift shelters. At that time, a lot of people, mostly the veterans were staying, like I said, in the parks. The county didn't do anything to take care of their own. And then you have those terrible military guys, but we won't get into that. They're very offended, I'm sure, from that stuff. But I was talking about how that military guy was totally nice. It was a little crazy for me, because he's just I don't want to rent anywhere and do all that thing. And then he has a stack of money. He's not poor. He's not anything. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He just wanted to kick back out there, and it's probably just mental health thing, but you wouldn't even know it. He seemed really nice. He was a nice guy. Who knows what happened there, but he wasn't a criminal. I mean, from what I saw and seen from his actions, he wasn't a criminal. Cities in California and across the U.S. have begun cracking down on homelessness. Yeah, because being homeless is a crime. And this is just crazy. It's not making people homeless should be a crime. Do you see that? So, no, he ain't coming from that place, okay? With harsher anti-camping policies, but you... This is the thing that's so crazy to me, because I dealt with the government with this. So, they purposely told people to go camp out on these streets, okay? Just saying, but... So they put them there, and now they're criminalizing them. I can't, you know what I mean? Following the U.S. Supreme Court ruling last year that cities can criminalize unhoused people for sleeping outside. It is just ridiculous. That is the biggest pile of shit I've ever read. The U.S. Supreme Court. Well, I mean, I don't believe in your system. I think it's a pile of shit. Mostly if a court's yeah, you know what? We're totally for harming humans. Let's do it. Well, that's America's history, so should we expect anything better of this pile of shit mess? No. The deal is to try to make it a better thing than it ever was, because there's nothing good about its past. Okay, even when there was no shelter spaces available. Exactly. So who made the no shelter thing? The rich. The rich. The ones that are out here fake crusading going, we care about humans. No, they don't. That's where that comes from. So their system promotes making people homeless and also not giving them shelter. So when all their toasty houses happen, you shouldn't feel a damn bad thing for any of them. Mostly those people that were in charge of that. And there was a lot of them out there. Oh yeah, boy, are they just, they're going, they're real sweet. I've always known there's a lot of evil out here. And I was just like, you know what? Their true colors will come out eventually. People think I'm mean and I'm just terrible. I'm just upfront. These people are fake as hell. They're evil as sin. And they are entitled, narcissist pieces of shit. Let's be honest. And you're going to see it. You'll see it. You have to pay attention. Because they'll come off like they're likable people. They're fake, okay? They're fake as hell. But it'll come out. Take a good look at their background. They came from a lot of... There's two different classes here. You look at these ones that were coming up from really rich families. But I've also seen this happen from people coming up from really poor families, coming up to be a big pile of shit, class hole. And that is the craziest thing I've ever seen. There is some psychology to that. I think I understand it now a little bit more, but it's so weird. I was saying it's strange that I didn't become that, but I'm in the middle road, right? So I'm in this road where it's like, we're around rich kids, we're around poor kids, and I don't really care either which way what people are, versus coming from one extreme to the other extreme, and the extreme of poverty. Like a lot of those people don't want to feel that terrible. Okay, because there's a thing when you have the bully rich people on the what they consider the bottom level of humanity, which is not. But anyways, they're bullying and making them feel bad for, them not having anything. And then they strive to become that big pile of shit rich person. And in the process start degrading everybody on the way up. It's the craziest thing, but there's psychology to it, I think, because I was looking at one of my friends that I grew up with. I go, that's weird. I had more money than that girl, and she's a snot right now, and that's a little weird. You would think it would be me, though. You would think it'd be me going on like that about these poor, you know what I mean? No. And I go, that girl right there came up from nothing and lived out in the middle of the sticks. And she'd be going on like this. And that's why I was like, this is weird. But I had to sit with it and think about it. I go, you know what? Maybe it's me because I didn't even pay attention to maybe how somebody would feel having less than me. I didn't degrade her. We did a lot of things together. No, I didn't degrade her. It just could be me not paying attention to general conversations and topics towards poor people and not being aware of it, when I'm growing up, right? Because I don't think I had a general awareness of this. I think it was just like, oh, whatever. Doesn't everybody get this? What? You're saying they don't? Yeah, it's more like that than it is, ew, how gross. These people are diseased. There's something wrong with it. That's a very different mindset. One's ignorant, one's very evil. So I was like, yeah, maybe it had something to do with that. And then I'm now just noticing like what the hell this issue is. And no, it is one extreme and the other extreme, and they both meet up and then, to be a big pile of shit together. So, because one wants to be like the other. And you really shouldn't want to strive to be that person up there, that rich person, in that way. No. You could be wealthy, not be that piece of crap, but good luck finding that person right there. So this is about going after poor people, but not the people that discriminate against poor people. Okay. So we just want to make this clear that California stands for hate crimes and promoting hate speech and violence on poor people, and that if you're not like us, you're diseased and you should be criminalized. Okay, so we just want to make it clear what California stands for. and what Newsom stands for. Because if you stand for that, hey, and so does the Supreme Court. So they don't believe in human rights. Okay, that's fine. Over the summer, Newsom issued an executive order calling for the removal of encampments on state property. This month, the Bay Area of Fremont passed a controversial law banning camping or public property and making permitting, aiding, or abetting encampments illegal, advocates for unhoused people have warned that such policies only worsen the crisis and make it harder for people to access services, right? Yeah, because they know where they can go to go find these people. Good luck finding them in those illegal houses. There's going to be more of that, you guys. If they make it illegal in the public, people are going to seek out more dangerous sheltered places where they might break into other buildings. We know that happens in other places, but we're talking about that dark underworld again. That's where you get 30 people giving $500 to stay in a slum home with no electrical. Okay? No running. I don't know if it had running water, but it didn't have a lot of stuff in there, okay? And it creates this other universe. It's just like the war on drugs. It's like, God, I was like, you of course you don't want to sit there and go, make it all totally legal and let everybody just do all the drugs that they want. I mean, there's a portion of like some drugs are probably okay versus some others, but you need to have this like middle ground. But the more that they go target a thing, it like causes this like whole series of bad things to happen, and then underground things going on and all this other stuff. Same concept here with this crisis, and they still do not have the numbers correct. They're so off. And I was like, yeah, it's just the perception thing. Like they were talking about counting also people that stayed in hotels, which technically, again, I felt a little, I don't know. You spend a lot more in a hotel than you do at a normal rental. So they looked at that in a backwards way in my mind. Because if the average rent was $500 and I end up having to spend almost $2,000 a month, I don't know, but, and then I get housekeeping, you're looking at this thing, but they were trying to equate these. It depends on how you want to look at it. But yeah, they don't have a residential address, but that is an address for some people. And we do have celebrities that do live in hotels as well. So do we consider them homeless? No. Okay, so his announcement on Monday came with stricter accountability measures for local governments and online tools allowing residents to track progress in their communities. The money includes $760 million in new funding as well as roughly $160 million in grants for local governments. So we have to crack down on these evil homeless people and then not fix the problem, right? So I'm going to take my whip and just go, okay, lie your asses off, do your evil still, and not fix the goddamn problem, which is you. Okay, so this is the system. That's what I'm saying. The system's all kinds of whack, and this is a pyramid scheme. It's a financial pyramid scheme through and through. Through and through, it's a financial pyramid scheme. So we just saw this happen and, come to fruition. Like, that's the thing. The same people I was battling like a decade ago ended up being where they're at. And they did so by targeting groups of people so they could steal all the money. And that's what they did. And it was all about money. It was nothing about human trafficking. It was nothing about safety of the public, and nothing about none of that, you guys. It's just garbage. It's just fake. It's to get you on their side. And I can tell you through and through, it was about finances. It was about money. It was about taking over industries. It was the darkest crap I had to go through, mostly when you're running your own business. If you don't run your own business, you won't know half of this stuff. So I just said there just like, so what? How is this even going on? The other thing that I really love that happened during that time, when they started targeting and doing this bullshit, they had some made up thing for gambling. This was interesting. So for some reason, they all got together and said, no more online gambling. Okay, we're taking away bingo. Like, literally bingo. And I was talking about this because there was an industry for this. And I was looking at it. and possibly joining in on this industry because it seemed interesting how they had these startups. Now, how, when you're talking about, I don't know. There's a whole lot that goes into that. Anyway, they turned around and said, just make it all illegal. I'm like, this is stupid as hell. So they saw some people start to come in and make some money on it, and they just cut it all off. Then they just now come back. I don't even know what year this started, but now they're doing this sports betting thing, which is about 10 times worse than anything bingo could ever be. I mean, how much can you lose at bingo? I mean, you can probably lose a couple $100 at bingo, but it's not really a game that you lose millions of dollars at. Okay, so we have this thing going on. It's all about money. It's all about control. And it's about certain wealthy individuals wanting to take over industries and bogart the table. That's what all this stuff is about. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about your health or safety or you getting raped or any of these things like that. It's all about these guys right here. And you'll notice it's a lot of rich white men. It's all of them. It's not just the Republicans. It's not, any of this. They go back and forth. But you're going to see it's literally all of them. They have different stances on issues, but they're still, what's their number one goal? They all want the same thing. They're greedy. So we have state funding could take an even greater importance during the Trump administration. I just find it so odd that these Trumpsters run with this crap, even though like what he stands for is not for them. Like he says things like, oh, we only want these rich, wealthy people coming into our state, only the best. And they're sitting there going, and yet they're not. What does that say about them? At some point, some of you gotta sit there and think about this. Like, the way that this is presented. But, I mean, I think there's some people kind of on this level, but they're kind of like, I don't know. I think maybe they're going off some certain different policies that they're talking about versus this general overall mentality going on here. They seem to have a perception that, these people are making up all this other stuff for this thing, and this other group is making up well, they're all making up stuff, but they're all effing us all over. And it's only this small class of people. They do not represent the majority of America. They just don't. But you would think that they do, because it's such, the way the media talks about things, the way, everything's presented, it kind of gets narrowed down into this weird microscope where it seems like the entire universe is like this and the rest of us are just a total hot mess or something. Like there's something wrong with us over these people, right? No, it's quite the opposite. And in fact, it kind of reminds me of the story that they were talking about with airplanes, which I don't like flying. We know that the last time I flown was in like 1986. I don't know. It was like a long time ago. But they are correct when they're talking about this, where, we have this like thing in the media where there's like 5 plane incidents in a week, right? We had Vince Neil's plane doing this thing. And actually that was the least of a plane crash, but yeah, it's kind of messed up because they're not really built to, like a car, to take all that in. Yeah, so we had a bunch of these plane incidents, and if you're like me and you have a fear of flying, that does not help. That does not help. And it seems like, oh God, all these planes are crashing. But then yet, they break down the story and go, do you know that there's like 900 million flights a year? Like they'll go in this thing about it and go, do you see in the overall perspective of this story that there's rarely ever an incident? It's true though. It doesn't change my opinion about flying, but it is true. And your perspective gets narrowed when it's just like, oh, today a plane accident. Oh, today a plane accident. Oh, this happened here. Another plane flipped over. Blah, blah, blah. It's like 5 in a row. Makes you think, oh my God, it's totally bad. Like I'm never flying again. And maybe you shouldn't, but I'm just saying this happens. But if there's like 900 million flights a year, that's hardly anything. It really messes with your head. And I understand that because, I have that issue right there with that sort of thing right there, the flying. The flying. So same concept. I'm just saying, same concept with these people right here. The media is so skewed into their hyper focus of rich, wealthy people. And it's kind of been this way since the 80s. This was the weird thing, I think, because why my parents chronically thought they were poor. I don't know where the hell that came from. I was like, we were well off. I don't know what and they would get mad. They're like, you continually think that money falls from trees and that we're well off. I go, no, we are well off. Because if we could all afford cars, every single one of us in our family, we own houses, and I have all the nice clothes in the world. I can get whatever I want most of the time. But I'm not sitting there asking or demanding for, like, massive, ridiculous stuff. Where, I mean, we're being, practical here, but um their perception of that is way off. We did well. We did very well growing up. And their perception was we're poor. I was like, maybe they felt poor because of the bills, but I can guarantee you they're nowhere near what is going on right now. Like, I don't know, the perspective is different, but I do believe their perspective was skewed because a lot of TV back then, I was even remembering this, rags to riches. Like, everything's about being from poor to getting rich. And then we have butlers and, this weird shit, right? You see a lot of that. But is this the average American household? F no. F no. What? How many people had a butler? We're not asking celebrities. How many people do you know had a butler? I think what was more common with the mid class was having a housekeeper once in a while. That actually, I guess they were trying to mimic the Brady Bunch. I don't know. But yeah, having a housekeeper once in a while was totally normal. Not necessarily a live-in housekeeper, but somebody that came in, did the cleaning during the week because everybody had kids. Everybody did this thing. So that actually, I would say, was more common than not. But anything outside of that, nobody had any of that stuff. So I think there's just this weird level of everybody. Oh yeah, Fantasy Island. We had, if you think about all these shows, they were about like people desiring to be ridiculously mega rich. And then at the end of the day, you find out they were all human traffickers and corrupt and did a lot of illegal things to get to where they were at. Definitely. So there's no such thing as a good billionaire. I was like, there just says it. I don't care. I don't know George Soros, but but let me tell you, that is very difficult. And in fact, I will tell you that they even that person, I don't know that person, but they still don't touch on the topics properly. They do bring forth good information, I will say that, but then we get accused of being paid off by some weird billionaire that we never even met. Okay. They brought up some issues that were harming, like the LGBTQ community, things like that, and I totally agree. And it was actually a very small group of people that were on top of this topic, and it wasn't even the Madonnas. That's what I was saying. I go, these people are so fake. I go, weren't they supposed to be like the voice of being? Yeah, it's the craziest thing. I'm like, no, but then all this other stuff was going on, and I'm watching it happen, and it's just horrifying. And then they'll come out and say they did the opposite. I go, no, that's actually not what happened. And then they start rewriting their history. I don't know. It's so strange, but we're not putting up with it anymore. I'm just calling them fake because they are fake. I go, I think you should know what you did in your history. I mean, I know what I did in my history. So if I was a shitty person at a point in time, I'm not going to sit there and try to rewrite it and go, oh, I didn't know. You know what I mean? It's just, I'd be ignorant. We just confront it. But these people are totally different. They make up a whole different story that didn't even happen. They weren't even there. They didn't even help people. They didn't do all this. They were actually running with the pack of pieces of what that actually went against what they claim they stand for. Yeah, so Elon Musk, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, has targeted the Office of Community Planning and Development, which funds housing and support of unhoused people for significant cuts. So then they're going to make people homeless and arrest them. And I would say that this would be something that Germany would have loved. And I don't care if anybody's annoyed by that comparison, because basically that would be that. And we do know these people here, look up to that kind of thing right there. And the department is expected to lose about 84% of its staff, according to the NPR report. So do people really understand what's going on here? I don't. They're just stupid. There's a lot of rich people who are evil in this that do not want to see themselves as the bad person. But then in the group and mix of this, I do believe there's just desperate Americans that believe the garbage that these people put out saying, we're for you, trust us, we're doing this for you. Like, who here really believes that somebody's going after the IRS because for the Americans? Okay, I mean, this isn't. Nobody's fighting for me for the IRS, okay? Somebody's going up in there being corrupt as hell and trying to go after people they don't like. Like that's their bullshit over there. They want to create all these like fake things and how we should forgive that. Are you kidding me? These people are so bad. And I feel sorry for any of the kids of them. Trust, I understand. We all we had the bipolar parent. The parent that's totally the polar opposite of, us, you know, in that way. So yeah, so like just when you think that your parents are the worst, I was like, well, you know, if Eli was my dad, I would be having a heyday in the media with them because I would be chronically dragging them. I mean, it wouldn't stop. I mean, I wouldn't allow this to go on, you know. I don't care because, you know, I would feel so comfortable. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, and he's privileged. And so are the kids. I mean, the fact that, like, the kids they may still have issues because of that, but they're a little bit more in line with being humane, but I don't know. I'd have to spend time with them. I've always had it in me to want to help people. I don't know where that came from. I'm all from Jesus. I know I really don't. It was something when I was really little. It may come off. It doesn't come off fake because I'm not fake. These people are fake. They come off as like they're so caring. Like it's fake. It's fake. You guys trust that. But they come off like they're so caring and that they have this good heart of wanting to do these things. And deep down, the whole thing is about themselves. And when I went through this, it was so weird. I was like, well, if you're really there for helping people, then why are you making fun of people that are in those positions? And then you're laughing at them when they're asking for their needs met to do XYZ, right? So somebody could, you know, like the computer thing. I was like, yeah, the computers are a necessity. I mean, mostly today, but at the time when we were asking for the computer, they were looking at it like some luxurious, like to F off type of product. And then they go and they get all this money from the public and then they're driving off in a Mercedes. I mean, this was literally what happened. And I go, this is the craziest thing ever. I go, well, how are you supposed to get out of a situation when you run your business off online? Like, they want to sit there and go, oh, we want to force you into something else. It's like, that's not for you to do. And that will never be for you to do. So I'm going to force you to get out of your job and you should do something else because I don't like it. You work for the government. You should quit. Well, Trump is going to make sure you get fired. So that's kind of a good thing, right? Just something like that, right? It was just an example because it was one of the things that was hindering escaping what they set up on me as a hate crime. So it's a hate crime. It wasn't something I did, you know. It wasn't, oh, I started doing drugs and I ended up in the street. It was that LAPD had me move in and they decided to do some illegal conduct because they're a bunch of gang members and they still haven't been caught. Now I have a video of them here and one of the clips ends up with them flipping off the camera. I don't know if it was accidental. It looks not. So, again, you know, we try to get these things investigated and there's a process, but if somebody is inside that process that blocks it, that's corruption. So then you can't get something investigated, right? So it's the same thing here with the housing thing. If I reported that somebody discriminated because XYZ, well, we do report these things. It's just that the people in government decide that they don't want to do anything about it. So they're the problem. Those are the people that get your money, and this is where your money is going straight to hell. It's not helping house the homeless. It's these people and their operation of criminal organized crime in through the county. So you need to be aware of the organized crime. You're seeing the organized crime at the highest level right now. There's a lot in that. And it's not just one side of people. That's what I'm saying. I'm just letting y'all know. If you think that, you don't know anything.